Next this evening on the council's agenda, I would like to invite those who are present to join the council and me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, if you wish.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda this evening is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on matters that are either of interest or concern to them. And they may be items that are on the council's agenda this evening, although they certainly are not limited to things that are on the agenda. And we have some guidelines for public participation and audience comments. We ask that when you're recognized, you please come over and use the lectern and the microphone so that you may be seen and heard by people who are in the council chambers this evening, and also by those people who may be watching the council meeting on Channel 21, our government access TV channel. We ask that you state your name and your address, and if you wish to emphasize a particular relationship to the city that matters to you, that you are a resident, a property owner, a business owner, someone who bikes here, whatever it is that is of importance to you, feel free to do so at that time. We ask that you limit comments to 5 minutes or fewer. And also, if you have written comments, please submit them for the city clerk. And with that, I will ask if anyone has signed up to speak during audience comments.
Yes. First on the list is Police Commander Stan Conrad.
Good evening. Mrs. Mayor, I'd like to thank you tonight for proclaiming this National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And I'd also want to thank the council for having us here this evening. We have a large group of our dispatchers and some of our other staff here to accept the proclamation.
Thank you. This is the proclamation that was issued a bit earlier about emergency communications, and there are a number of whereases in it, all of them very important and all of them very familiar to you. And it starts with the fact that emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And that when emergencies occur, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and the preservation of property. And you, as you know and we know, are a vital link in providing those services and making sure that people in our community are safe and well cared for. And with that, in gratitude, this proclamation has been issued to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I just had a couple more things to add. We were not able to have all of our dispatchers here this evening because, as you obviously know, they work 24/7. They work nights, they work weekends and holidays, and they are always ready to take 911 calls and to support the officers of Issaquah and Snoqualmie Police Department and those communities with emergency 911 services. A few quick statistics. Last year, the Issaquah Police Communications Center handled nearly 60,000 telephone calls. Of that, 12,000, they also handled 12,000 911 calls. So I just want to thank everyone here, our dispatchers, supervisors, and our technicians for keeping our 911 center up and running to protect our communities. Thank you.
I will ask if there are other people who have signed up to speak during audience comments.
Yes, I have two more. Jeff Aiken, followed by Matthew Bott.
Mayor, members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Jeff Aiken with Forterra, which is formerly Cascade Land Conservancy from Seattle. It gives me great pleasure tonight to have a few members of my team out here and others from Forterra who have worked on this project to give strong support to the adoption of the Central Issaquah Plan development and design standards. We really believe at Forterra that this long-term vision represents a way to make the neighborhoods livable, walkable, places where you can live, work, and raise your family, and make a great community even better moving forward. With this plan, Issaquah has the opportunity to turn parking lots into walkable, healthy neighborhoods with strong connections to jobs, parks, open space, regional centers, and other amenities that make this a great place to live. A tremendous amount of time and effort has been put into this planning effort over the last years. I know we started in 2008 partnering with the city on some different tours and events. And so I really wanted to take a second also to acknowledge city staff that have put in countless hours and we've had the pleasure of working with over the years on this plan, and it's been a great relationship, one that we really look forward to continuing. And also working with a lot of community stakeholders and folks from Matt at the Chamber to citizens and other events on this plan. We really believe it represents a future vision of a walkable, healthy community that will really make this a great place, an even greater place. I want to say we're excited to have you adopt the plan and then actively evaluate that and manage that moving forward to tweak things that need to be tweaked and make sure it works according to those principles and policies you adopted in December. We were excited to see that it advances conservation goals through transfer of development rights and the city's goals and regional goals as it moves forward, as it develops compactly in urban centers. Excited to see that it really brings flexibility on projects that deliver community benefits, and that was one thing in our developer focus group that people were really interested and exciting about, that the opportunities that it brings moving forward. So with that, I just really want to congratulate you and say Issaquah was one of the first Cascade Agenda leadership cities, a relationship we at Forterra have been excited about and have enjoyed working with you, and really believe that this can create a roadmap for being more complete, compact, and connected. And really creating that framework and that vision that will enhance the quality of life in Issaquah. And we look forward to continuing the partnership we've had with the city and working with residents in the community and others to see the vision implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Bott.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Matthew Bott, and I'm here representing the Greater Issaquah Chamber of Commerce. I work at 155 Northwest Gilman Boulevard. And really just to echo Jeff's comments in support of the regional center designation now before you, and to acknowledge the great work on the design standards also before you this evening. From the business community's perspective, this is important. This is an important component to our long-term economic vitality strategy as a community. We believe it places us at a greater competitive advantage towards achieving more infrastructure dollars for our community, which would lessen the tax burden on our citizens and businesses. We believe this is important to make us competitive for light rail in the future, and enhancing mobility, supporting greater density, all the things in the Central Issaquah Plan, which the Chamber also supports. We would like to urge your approval of it tonight. We think this helps with our economic vitality strategy and making us more competitive in terms of talking with site selectors who are out there shopping for spaces for businesses. This is another piece of the pie that allows us to put it forward to say, here's our future, and please invest in us. So in addition to everything that Mr. Aiken mentioned from the business community, we strongly support it. Our board strongly supports it, and we would urge your adoption of the regional center designation this evening as well. So thank you very much for all the work that you've put in, that the staff's put in, the city. It's greatly appreciated, acknowledged, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you on this topic.
Thank you. Are there other people who have signed up to speak during audience comments this evening? Is there anyone present who hasn't had an opportunity to speak during audience comments who wants to speak during audience comments? Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor and Council, my name is Michael Hemker. This is Nancy Drew. We both serve on the board of the Children's Response Center. On behalf of the advisory board, staff, and families served by the Children's Response Center, We thank the City of Issaquah for providing support for our program services for your commitment for so many years. Children's Response Center is pleased this year to be celebrating 28 years of service in this community. At the Children's Response Center, we heal the hearts of children who have suffered from severe physical and sexual abuse or who have been traumatized. We help heal and support children through crisis intervention and advocacy and promote prevention and safety through education. This is currently Child Abuse Prevention Month. In 2012, Child Protective Services responded to 180 child victims in Issaquah who had been reported by concerned community members. Child abuse is not a societal problem that happens to other people. It continues to occur in this community as well. Nancy Drew is going to hand out to the members of the council pinwheels, which can serve as a symbol of the bright future all children deserve, and our belief that getting it right early is less costly than trying to fix it later. And we are asking for the City of Issaquah to continue to support the Children's Response Center and be a proactive member in preventing child abuse in this community. Thank you.
The City of Issaquah has a proclamation that we're issuing tonight, and it speaks to the Harborview Children's Response Center and the work that they do within our community. And it begins, whereas all children deserve to grow up in a safe and nurturing environment to ensure they reach their full potential, and whereas safe and healthy childhoods help produce confident and successful adults, and whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and not knowing how to cope, and whereas decreasing the occurrence of child abuse and neglect relies upon the efforts of every individual in order to make a positive, substantial impact upon children of today so they can be the leaders of tomorrow. This proclamation is saying that the month of April 2013 is Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Issaquah, and I urge all citizens to join me in protecting and nurturing our children. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and seal of the City of Issaquah this 15th day of April. I want to present that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ask again if there's anyone else who wishes to speak during audience comments. Anyone else who wishes to speak during audience comments? Third call, is there anyone present who wishes to speak during audience comments? Hearing and seeing no one else who wishes to speak during audience comments now are closed, and the next item to come before the council this evening are committee reports, and we will start with Councilmember Forkner.
Thank you. Excuse me. Council Utilities, Technology, and Environment Committee met last week on Thursday. Discussion started with Sustainable Building CIP update. Staff presented information regarding the input mechanisms, process, and schedule for updating the draft Green Building Plan, which will then provide input into the city's energy carbon reduction plan and eventually into the city's sustainability plan being prepared for this year. We also discussed Agenda Bill 6562, the Water System Plan update. Staff presented a process update for the plan approval. The comment period is over, and the city has received comments from Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer District, Washington State Department of Health, and King County. Comments were generally questions requiring some clarification. The city's consultants are working on drafting responses and modifying some language in the draft plan to address the question. It is expected that the process of addressing the questions and getting Department of Health and King County approvals will take until late June or early July, after which the committee will complete its oversight and make a recommendation regarding the plan adoption by the council. Next, there was a Transportation Benefit District update. Staff briefly provided a background of discussion that has occurred at the Council Transportation Committee and presented some ideas for projects that the Transportation Benefit District could fund. Some project ideas were street overlay, complete streets, and could bond against the revenue for larger type projects, such as matching funds for the Northwest Dogwood Bridge and matching funds for Rainier Boulevard. There was also project updates. Staff presented updates on the water, sewer, and stormwater utility capital projects planned for construction in 2013 and the design studies that were occurring in 2013 in preparation for later discussion. The last item on the agenda, the committee discussed the need to rename the committee since transportation has now been added to its area of responsibility. The committee recommended changing the name of the committee to the Infrastructure and Sustainability Committee. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council Land and Shore Committee met on April 9th, and we first discussed regional growth center designation, and we also discussed the development and design standards for the Central Issaquah Plan. Those both are on the agenda tonight, so I will leave those to discussion for later. We discussed Agenda Bill 6595, major amendment to Issaquah Highlands two-party development agreement. This involves Swedish Hospital, and the committee recommended moving forward with those discussions, and that'll be before the full council, I believe, our first full council meeting in May. We continued our discussion of changes to the transfer of development rights land use code, and then we also received the latest chapter in the Klahani annexation study, and that report should be posted on the city's website. The next meeting of Land and Shore is May 14th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers, and I do not have an agenda yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martz.
No report.
Councilmember Scher.
No report.
Councilmember Barber.
The Services and Safety Committee for the 8th had been canceled, so I have no report also.
Councilmember Winterstein.
No report.
Councilmember Butler.
No report.
We're on a roll. Mayor's report. There is one. There will not be an executive session meeting to be held this evening. And you have heard the proclamation about Child Abuse Prevention Month. There is also a proclamation this evening proclaiming Arbor Day in the city of Issaquah as April 20th, 2013. And so this is a day that is coinciding with Earth Day celebrations, and I will step forward and present this proclamation. This starts, as it does every year, with the statement that whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And this holiday was called Arbor Day, and it was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And this anniversary of Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, they can cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, the city of Issaquah will celebrate Arbor Day on Saturday, April 20th, 2013, and I hereby proclaim that day to be Arbor Day in the city, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I encourage and urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand on the seal of the city of Issaquah. Thank you.
And in turn, to celebrate a milestone in Issaquah's history as a Tree City, USA, we have a few very special things to award the mayor and the city council and all of the citizens of Issaquah. For 20 years of protecting your urban forest and enhancing that natural resource, the Arbor Day Foundation awards you with this very special 20th anniversary award.
Thank you very much.
Now, you have a really nice Tree City USA flag, but they give you an even more special one for 20 years. My name is Mickey McNaughton, and I'm here representing the Washington Community Forestry Council this evening. It's been my pleasure and my distinct honor to be able to be here tonight with you and present this award to the citizens of Issaquah. We're very proud of what Issaquah has achieved here and what they continue to achieve. I was just chatting with Alan Haywood this afternoon. So many great plans going forward in this city. We're very proud of what you do, and we do hold you up as a shining example to other cities. So please continue so we can continue to hold you up as the way it should be done. Thanks very, very much. Here's the presentation box.
Thanks. Also this evening, I want to note that we are looking forward to the opening of the Farmers Market this Saturday, April 20th, and that's in addition to various Earth Day and Arbor Day celebrations taking place around the city. And for more information about those, please visit our website. There are a number of opportunities for people to take part in a community cleanup and in tree plantings and other great things that are happening here. And that is at our website, issaquahwa.gov. The city of Issaquah was recently named the city's Innovative Recycler of the Year by the Washington State Recycling Association for pioneering a green retail experience in partnership with Cleanscapes. The resulting Rethinking Stuff store in Gilman Village offers recycled, recyclable, and upcycled goods. It also functions as a walk-in service center where residents can access recycling resources, educational materials, and drop off some of the difficult to recycle items such as styrofoam. And those hours at the Rethinking Stuff store are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Another item of note, on Thursday, April 25th at 9 a.m., the Economic Development and the Development Services Departments will be holding a summit to discuss sign rules within the community and also to discuss possible modifications to the sign code to enhance business visibility and maintain or improve our city's unique character. And this discussion is open to business and property owners, employees, residents, and all interested members of the public. And with that, I conclude the mayor's report for this evening. Now I will ask the council if the council has reviewed the payables and payroll accounts.
Yes.
Right? And then I will ask the council what you wish to do with the consent calendar. Councilmember Winterstein.
Yes, I move that we accept the consent calendar
Okay.
as it appears on the agenda.
Second.
All right, moved by Winterstein, seconded by Butler. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passed unanimously. And I will note, because I see Historical Society members in the audience, that the funding request having to do with the trolley has been referred to the Infrastructure and Sustainability Committee of the council. So that's something that will be reviewed and then brought back with a recommendation to the council in a fairly short period of time. So that's the disposition of it, in case there was any wondering about that. Next, under regular business, first item is Agenda Bill 6586, Regional Growth Center Designation. And this has been reviewed by our Land and Shore Committee. And I will therefore ask Land and Shore Committee Chair Goodman to please bring this information forward with a summary and information that you feel is important for the council to know.
Thank you. Agenda Bill 6586, as you mentioned, is about seeking Regional Growth Center designation for Central Issaquah. So I have just a brief little introduction here. Growth centers are a construct of the Puget Sound Regional Council, and they are areas designated to have significant employment and residential density. And in exchange, and also in addition to helping curb sprawl, centers receive some advantage during regional and county-wide funding competitions. The process for becoming a center involves approval by the King County Growth Management Planning Council and then Puget Sound Regional Council. In order to qualify for center designation, the area must be within an urban growth boundary, must meet certain size, population, and employment thresholds, and it must be consistent with center designation criteria that's established by Puget Sound Regional Council. In December 2012, the council adopted the Central Issaquah Plan, which includes a 461-acre area in the urban core that is proposed to be the center area. The next step regarding this agenda bill is that it asks the council whether to nominate that urban core area for center designation. On April 3rd, the council met with representatives from King County and Puget Sound Regional Council as an opportunity to get more familiar with centers. On April 9th, Land and Shore had another meeting with a representative from Puget Sound Regional Council, and then the committee recommended that the city nominate the Central Issaquah Urban Core area for center designation. We have Mark Hinthorn's here tonight if we have any questions. But at this time, I would like to move to nominate the Central Issaquah Urban Core for designation as an urban center in the King County countywide planning policies, and authorize the administration to submit a request for center designation to the Growth Management and Planning Council.
Second.
And that was Councilmember Winterstein who seconded, correct? Okay. All right, so the topic is before the council now, and I will ask the council if you have questions, if you wish an additional presentation, or you wish to start discussing and then move from there. Councilmember Goodman.
Well, I'll make a comment. I'm going to say that I'm going to support this agenda bill. And the reason I'm supporting it is because center designation really just embodies the vision that we've already adopted that's in the Central Issaquah Plan. We already took that significant step in December when we adopted the Central Issaquah Plan. The benefit to becoming a center, in my mind, is that it's an additional tool to realizing our vision in the Central Issaquah Plan. And that really was sort of hammered home when we met with Ivan Miller from Puget Sound Regional Council a couple of weeks ago. So although I support it, I also want to be careful that we don't send the message that becoming a center is the key to implementing the Central Issaquah Plan. We've heard a lot about the funding and the funding opportunities that are available for center projects on a regular basis, and I think that's a 2-year funding cycle. But that funding is very competitive, it's between other centers, and it's far from a sure thing. So I really believe it's going to be really important for Issaquah to do everything we can to be competitive and not just rely on the extra points that we get if we were to get a center designation for the urban core area of Central Issaquah. So I'm really expecting that we will carefully scrutinize the criteria for the funding competitions so that we can be as competitive as possible. And if we get some money, I guess it's certainly better because we've really not fared very well before. But again, I want to emphasize that it's just one tool and that there are many more to come forward with regard to implementing the Central Issaquah Plan. But that's why I'm going to be supporting it this evening.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councilmember Butler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly agree with my colleague that it makes us more competitive for funding, and I agree also that it is an important step in achieving the vision of the Central Issaquah Plan that we approved in December. It does a number of other things in my mind also. By focusing growth in the core part of Issaquah, it protects our forested hillside and takes pressures off of one of Issaquah's treasures. It also preserves the existing character of our existing neighborhoods, and I think that's important also. So we're putting the growth where it makes sense, and it's also consistent with our desire to bring high-capacity transit to Issaquah also, and that planning effort will begin sometime this year as we look at potential station locations and routes for high-capacity transit. So I, too, will be supporting this motion.
Councilmember Mertz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I joined this council almost 4 years ago, partially motivated by seeing what I saw as a lack in workforce housing and living wage jobs in the city, and thus I'm really proud to support this motion in front of us. I've long said that the people who live here don't generally work here, and the people who work here can't afford to live here. We are blessed with a robust and thriving retail community, and we see all projections going forward as seeing that retail and commercial grow. But you know, just a couple of years ago, we were looking at these very large projections in increased retail without a commensurate increase in housing in the valley floor. So I think that if for no other reason, and there are many reasons already mentioned by my fellow council members, the emphasis on a really robust housing target and the commensurate incentives to bring that housing to the valley is sufficient reason to strongly support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilmember Scheer?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think we can check one item off our 2013 non-budget list based on the comments I've heard this evening. One of our goals was to pursue the Regional Growth Center designation, and that's before us now. And I will join my colleagues in supporting this agenda bill this evening. I think this is a big step forward for the city. We've talked about this now, as Tola mentioned, for many years. It's been an item that's been discussed and whether we should pursue it. We will join a list of a number of other cities such as Tukwila and Linwood and other jurisdictions that are situated for regional growth. And as has been mentioned as well, we will be in line for more funding. And I think that's a really important piece of this designation, because as we pursue the additional growth, we have to keep up with our infrastructure and our transportation demands. And transportation and traffic are one of the number one things I hear folks grousing about who not only live in the community but who drive through our community. And this designation will enable us to pursue additional funds to help with roads, with transit, with other transportation programs. In looking at the PSRC definition of a regional growth center, it's a small area of compact development where housing, employment, shopping, and other activities are in close proximity. And it's used to differentiate centers that are designated for regional purposes from those that have a more local focus. And that really fits the definition of the central area and the vision that we adopted back a few months ago for that area of the city. So this is right in line with what we've been talking about. Things are going to change. Things are going to grow. I know, we've got the folks from the Historical Society here this evening, and I've talked about this book before, not to put in too much of a plug, but this book from the Issaquah Historical Society shows us what this city looked like 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And I love looking at it from time to time. And, you see the pictures in here. And certainly if we don't have an executive session, we can come up after the meeting, and I'm happy to share it with anyone in the audience. But, the city's going to change, and it's going to grow. And we're not going to look like Front Street, in the 1950s and the 1960s. So things are going to happen around here, and this is a really responsible way, as we did with the Central Area Vision, to manage that growth responsibly, efficiently, in a way that moves us forward as a regional center. So I'm really proud to be supporting this evening and to be one of the council members who will cast a vote in favor of that designation. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, discussion? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also this evening will be supporting this agenda bill. It is one of those pieces that is just now finally finishing up a project that has been long in the process. It is that tool that just simply helps us to realize the vision, and I think it's a very important piece. It speaks to future, as we heard from Matt Bach from the Chamber, that economic vitality piece that will continue to help the Issaquah. The housing, it focuses our growth. We're already through our plan meeting most of the criteria for this. Excuse me. So I will be supporting this evening, and thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, discussion? Councilmember Winterstein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a little bit of a review. The Central Issaquah Plan that we passed in December, we considered three alternatives. One was called no action, another one called task force alternative, and the other one, and the third one was called regional growth center. It was the administration's recommendation. By accepting that third one, regional growth center, we put in our plan population levels and job levels and a commitment to plan at the levels that really align with the regional growth center designation numbers. So we did make that decision that this level of planning, we moved it into our comprehensive plan as well. And so really in December we said we got to take the next step. Now what this step is today that we'll be voting on is just making a nomination for our urban core to the regional to the Puget Sound Regional Council. And that I look at the time frame going forward, in roughly October of this year, the council will be considering perhaps another agenda bill to formally submit an application to the regional, to PSRC for that designation, and perhaps maybe in May of 2014 would be the time when such a designation could be achieved. So I think just to be perfectly clear, we still have some steps in front of us. The PSRC does do, as was already mentioned, look at projects on a 2-year cycle. They looked at projects in 2012. They'll be looking again at project applications in 2014. I don't know yet if we were to receive a designation in 2014, we would qualify or even chance on that 2014 funding cycle. That's something we should know. So I think there's a kind of some steps in a time frame in front of us that we should all just be aware of. And I think another thing too that it really resonated with me, and as already mentioned once already, that here's just some numbers we got from PSRC recently. That in 2012 there were 34 applications submitted to them between regional centers, corridors, and manufacturing centers. And 10 of them got funded. 5 of them were actually projects related to regional centers. So as was mentioned earlier, the clarity of our objectives, the quality of our applications, the quality of our planning, and the leadership and the work that we do, it's going to be extremely important for us to execute very well as a city going forward. These are competitive dollars. The planning that we've accepted for employment and for population, those are nice big numbers. We did an EIS in the environmental study as part of the CIP that used numbers assuming that we would have a transportation infrastructure that honestly this city is most likely to achieve. After doing some significant projects, we see PSRC as a partner with us to actually be able to fund and accomplish those projects. So there's still quite a bit of work. This is a significant milestone in our process, but we're going to continue to need the same level of quality of work that the team and the staff has put into this so far, and then leadership from the city to actually realize the vision and the goals of our Central Issaquah Plan. And I'm going to be supporting this step tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion? Other comments or discussion? Is the council ready to act upon this, or is there a desire for more discussion? Okay, it appears that the council is ready to act upon this. All right. All those in favor of the motion to nominate the Central Issaquah Urban Core for designation as an urban center in the King County countywide planning policies and authorize the administration to submit a request for center designation to the Growth Management Planning Council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passed unanimously. The next item to come before the council this evening under regular business is Agenda Bill 6617, establishing design and development standards for Central Issaquah. And this, again, is something that has been reviewed by the Land and Shore Committee, and so I will ask Councilmember Goodman to bring this forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, this is Agenda Bill 6617. These are the design and development standards for the Central Issaquah Plan. This is just one of the many implementation pieces of the Central Issaquah Plan, but it's the first one, and it's a very significant one because we can't have any projects going forward unless we have this piece in place, because this is actually the standard, the code by which projects are measured and approved. So a number of folks, and I say we, meaning staff, Planning Policy Commission, the council, many members of the community, Forterra, and recently a panel of property owners and developers, and probably more people that I haven't mentioned, have been working on these standards for a long time, since at least last summer. So very generally, the standards encourage development in the Central Issaquah area to be dense, pedestrian friendly, and transit oriented, and to have basically an urban level of services and amenities. The full council, I believe we last discussed these standards at a workshop in February, and since then the standards have come to a couple of Land and Shore committee meetings. What I would like to do is highlight the major proposed changes in the design standards since our workshop, and they're not in any order of importance. But the first one I want to mention is there's been a proposed clarity in the standards regarding 110-foot building separation. You'll recall that some of the buildings are required to be separated by 110 feet, and the reason for that was to preserve view corridors. But there was a concern that just requiring 110-foot separation did not really address that real intent, because you could have buildings separated by 110 feet, but they really could block the views, particularly the mountain views. So there were added to the standards in, I believe it's 3 places, a mention of the intent, which was to preserve the forested hillsides of Tiger, Squaw, and Cougar Mountain, and Mount Rainier. and both from some community spaces and also just by the building location themselves. So that's proposed to be a change just so in the future we know what the real intent, future councils know what the intent was when we required there to be a 110-foot building separation. The next one I want to mention is a maximum impervious surface. The concern was, and Tola, correct me if I'm wrong, the concern was that the language allowed perhaps for 100% impervious, so that now there are express caps, and those range from 85 to 95%. But most of the categories, land use categories, allow only a 5% increase in the impervious surface from what we originally established, rather than some administrative adjustment of standards, which arguably could have allowed for a larger increase of impervious surface. The next one I want to mention is there was an addition of homeless shelters in the standards, and Land and Shore first saw that proposed addition on April 9th. And there was a lot of thought that went into that, but the committee's concern was that it needed more community exposure, because it really was an issue that was emerging on the east side, and other communities were talking about it sort of currently. And so we felt like there was some time to give that some more exposure. So we recommended that that be taken out for now. The next proposed change is to commercial lease signs. There was a concern that was raised about the size of commercial leasing signs, that they're so huge that they overwhelm building monument signs. And so we are, the committee recommended reducing the size of those lease signs. Then the last couple of issues have to do with the FAR and a value for parks. First, the easier one, the parks, the value for land that's provided for parks in the standards was set or established at $37 a square foot, I believe. And upon further analysis by staff, it came forward that we recommended that we change that to fair market value. And then the last item that I wanted to raise was the FAR. There is a request to remove critical areas and park sites from the FAR calculation because those are not buildable spaces, and other cities, not all of them, but other cities, particularly in our area, do exclude critical areas and park sites from the FAR calculation because those, they're not, like I said, they're not buildable areas, and it's difficult, if not possible, to reach the desired FAR building that's required in the plan or in the standards if those aren't removed. So those are the highlights, the significant changes, and Mark Hinthorn and Kristen Leeson and Dave Favor are here if anybody has any questions. And I can either make a motion first.
Sure.
I would move to adopt ordinance number, adding a new chapter 18.19A to the Issaquah Municipal Code to be entitled Central Issaquah Area Development and Design Standards, adopting development and design standards by reference to attached as exhibits, and rezoning designated properties in accordance with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Moved by Goodman and seconded by Martz. And now there's an opportunity for discussion and questions. So I will ask if anyone wishes to begin discussing or asking questions. Councilmember Martz.
I have a question. Need clarification. Where in here do we now have the language in that expressly says FAR will be calculated not using critical areas? Because I couldn't find it.
Good evening. Where is it located? It's first located in the memo that was sent to the Land and Shore Committee. And so if that passes this evening, we would insert that language into the final draft.
So I saw it in the memo,
Right.
and it said it's the intent of, I think it says something, it's the intent to include that, but it's not actually the language in the measure is not.
Yeah, well, is it in the council packet?
I don't think it is, because I look, there's a definition
Yeah.
for floor area ratio.
Right. It's not in the packet. It's
Gotcha.
in that memo. We worked it out on Tuesday, and so
Right?
if approved tonight, we'll insert it in the online version of all the chapters that are on this document.
Councilmember Goodman?
So does that need to be an amendment or a motion to?
I think that it's understood by the administration as to what the intent is and what is wished to be included. And if in fact the council voted upon this favorably, that inclusion would be made.
Thank you.
And you have been listening to David Favor from our Development Services Department.
Yes, you have.
Yes, Councilmember Faulkner.
On behalf of a lot of people that have been working for an awful long time, I would first like to congratulate the mayor for starting this process and seeing it move through. I also like to thank all of the citizens and the different groups and committees and commissions that have put so much time and energy into this. It's been a really large endeavor. And last, I'd like to thank my colleagues for moving it forward to this position. Whether it passes or not tonight, it's been a long process that has had an awful lot of good review and good input. And I think each one of us should be congratulated for the time and energy that we've put into this.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman.
So I wanted to clarify a little bit there've been a lot of moving parts, and so in my my haste or my inability to get it all pulled together very clearly, I wanted to clarify this FAR. So Land and Shore considered the removal of critical areas and the parks from the calculation. And at the committee last week, we requested some information. We asked the question, what do other cities do? And so the memo is the research that was done after Land and Shore, and so that's why it's not in the packet. And we also did not discuss at Land and Shore the changing the park established value of $37 a square foot to fair market value, because it was a 5-hour meeting and we forgot, quite frankly. I'm not going to fib. We just forgot. So that's why it's not in the packet.
And would the intent be that those things be included if this bill were to pass? That those changes that you've described
Yes.
would be included?
But that's kind of why I was asking if it needed to be an amendment, because I wasn't quite sure.
I think that previously the city attorney said that we simply would understand them to be included.
Okay.
If that's the council's wish, and I've heard it stated that that's what you want to do. Okay. Other questions or discussion on this agenda bill? Additional questions or discussion? I'm looking at Councilmember Scher because I try to make sure that each council member who wishes to speak has an opportunity to speak.
I saw Councilmember Winterstein first, if you'd like to go ahead.
All right, Councilmember Winterstein.
Well, I want to echo Councilmember Faulkner's comments about thanking the work that's been done and on this. I'm not going to even begin to try to summarize everything that's in here, but boy, this is the part we need to put in the motion. This is what's going to guide and set a lot of wheels in motion. This is the implementation of the vision. A lot of people did work on it. I'm looking at a number of staff members. I really admire you for your hard work and your contributions, and others who aren't even here. It's been a pleasure working with you on these. And also, I want to thank my colleague, Council Member Goodman, I think for her leadership and commitment and perseverance and hard work and real fairness through all this as chair of Land and Shores, really set a sterling example for leadership and really seeing this through to this point. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. Councilmember Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to say my comments all at once, so I hopefully don't have to speak again. It's extremely hard to plan for the next 30 or 40 years, and I'm also in awe at the amount of drafting and redrafting that has gone into these proposed standards. This isn't the Academy Awards, so I'm not going to name everybody involved, but suffice to say we owe a great deal of gratitude to our city staff, to the committees and the commissions that have put this all together and reviewed the plan throughout a long process. And so we adopted the plan, the vision, a little while back, and we all agreed on the big picture. And I believe in the big picture because, as I said in the previous vote, Issaquah will change and it will grow. And it's important that we try to shepherd the course of our city's development away from strip malls and seas of parking and to promote a pedestrian pedestrian-friendly community with excellent parks and recreation opportunities. And, our forebears could not have imagined the day when we would need structured parking and electric vehicle charging stations and workforce housing. And so these are all things, that are new and we have to consider. And there may be other new things in the future that we haven't even thought of yet. And that leads us tonight to the details. It's a document with 17 chapters of development and design standards that will be relied on as our roadmap to the future. And I'm struggling with just a few parts of it. I spent a good chunk of time reflecting on what to say tonight and what to decide. And I'm sure that I can't be the only person who has had some measure of uneasiness with a piece of it here or there. Most chapters in the standards are easy for me to support. And for the items which I'm not sure of, I don't claim to possess any superior knowledge or insight to suggest the standards will produce negative consequences. The plain fact is, I just don't know how to vote on a package that includes so many different definitions and different requirements all at once. One of the hardest things about being on the City Council is having to decide even when you're not 100% sure of something. Often I will apply my legal training to the problem and assess whether something is more likely than not good for our citizens. And sometimes my analysis compels me to disagree with my colleagues. Not because I don't respect their opinions, but because reasonable minds can differ when faced with the magnitude of considerations that we tackle month in and month out. We might all have a little discomfort with some details contained in the standards, and for me, the guidance I sought was in the form of what I heard while campaigning for this office in late 2011, combined with the public comments contained as an exhibit to the agenda bill. I did so because I believe that at the end of the day, our identity is shaped by the community we represent, and in order to preserve the integrity of that identity, we should look to why people live here in the first place, why businesses choose to locate here, and what we want to be known as. I have heard people tell me they don't want to see us become one of those cities along an interstate where you can't tell what the town stands for because it's just a row of big box shopping or lines of office towers for a few exits. I have heard people tell me that they don't want to be the next Bellevue, Redmond, or Kirkland, which are all great places, but instead they just want to be the best Issaquah. I've heard people tell me a large part of these standards will achieve that realization, but maybe, and I emphasize maybe, some of them won't. I would respectfully point to just a few issues of concern. For starters, we've had now a last-minute change in the definition of floor area ratio contained in a post-committee discussion memo that I've never seen until a few seconds ago and not sure I understand. It's difficult, as a second point, to implement much of what is proposed without a funding plan to accomplish it. For example, I would love nothing more than to see us start planning for an I-90 overcrossing at 12th Avenue. I've said it before. I'll say it again. But what will it take for us to get there? Next, we're still engaged in a lot of discussion about our concurrency model and whether we should take a different approach to the central area. Next, we've talked about the street drawings in Section 6 in the circulation guidelines as maybe examples. It's unclear to me whether those are required street designs or not from reading Section 6. Next, the corporate identification signs on buildings. They've been reduced in our newest draft, but do we need them at all? Most of our city is already awash in commercial signs. Do we need to stamp brand names 10 stories in the sky, too? Do we need to look up at the Alps and see a name before we see the trees? In fact, not even downtown Seattle has corporate identification signs on their high-rises, and that certainly hasn't detracted business from locating there. Next, we have affordable housing requirements, but I'm worried about how we add housing generally, especially in light of the regional center designation targets. Next, overall, do the standards articulate our community's values and expand on them, or do they bring us in an entirely new direction? I can't tell from reading 17 chapters of this document, and I don't know if the public can either. And lastly, I wish we could do something revolutionary, progressive, memorable, unique among cities in the region. I'm sure that as we proceed with implementing the plan, a number of items will be subject to further comment and review. There was a great editorial in the Sunday Times about Vancouver, which is one of my favorite cities in the world. And it talked about 3 things to consider in urban planning. 1, align your land use with how you get around, looking at infrastructure. 2, be unashamed to have a constantly high urban design standard. And 3, make amenities that make density enjoyable. I look at section 10.9a, blank walls. They may be required to enhance the pedestrian experience. Yet in section B, retaining walls must be landscaped. Well, why can't blank walls be enhanced too? Why can't we go above and beyond the may, the possible? Why can't we make it a requirement, an actual? Again, that's what makes this vote so difficult for me personally. Do I embrace the standards despite just a few reservations, or do I oppose them despite the goodness of most of them? I've heard residents in all neighborhoods throughout the city tell me that what they like about Issaquah's character and what they don't. Our constituents may not always have the time to send us email or show up at a meeting, but they have opinions and an abiding belief about what makes us great. So if we were asked to vote chapter by chapter on these standards, most of my responses would be a simple yes. But there are enough folks in this town who have expressed concerns, such as the ones I've mentioned and others too, that very reluctantly, ironically perhaps after supporting the regional center designation, I can't swallow the prescription of this whole package altogether at one time. I hold no ill will towards anyone who supports the proposed standards. I truly hope that 30 years hence, our successors will look back with nothing but praise for the tremendous efforts now being undertaken. That will be the record and the basis of my vote tonight. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilmember Martz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. I want to speak to public input. This has been one of the challenges that we've had, and one of the reasons that current council leadership is looking to restructure how we address large issues before the city is many things wind up going just to one committee. And a lot of these issues have gone heavily to Land and Shore, which is why we had a 4.5-hour meeting at our last meeting. But through it all, Councilmember Goodman has been very thorough in taking public input and considering public input and having it help shape this bill. Secondly, this has been thoroughly considered. This was an issue that we asked to slow down because we didn't think it was ready last winter when we were looking at the rest of the issues here. That caused a lot of extra work on staff's part, but it was the right thing to do, and it makes me more confident here today. And in all the thank yous that we've made, I want to direct one very specifically. Now I'll get maybe a little emotional. Our Special Projects Director, Mark Hinthorn, has been the representative to the Land and Shore Committee as long as I've been on council, and he helped shepherd through the Central Issaquah Plan and the Regional Growth Center that we're just voting on. And when we take up the issue of Klahani, it will be because of his quiet, calm support for us as a council. So I just want to say, Mark, thank you so much for your years of helping make good policy for the council. And so I'll be supporting this bill.
Thank you. Other comment? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I have no voice this evening at all, maybe I can't even get through, I'll keep it really brief. This has been a large project, and I want to echo Councilmember Faulkner's comments about many involved with endless hours. And this is the completion of a very long project. And I think the last very piece that was important for me, thank you, Stacy, was making sure the view corridors were preserved there. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion? Councilmember Goodman?
I'll be, excuse me. I do have a voice. I do have a voice. I support the design standards as well. They are greatly, greatly improved since late last year. And we have a lot of people to thank for that, particularly all the folks that are sitting off camera here, Mark and Kristen and Dave. We're just put in a ton of time revising these. It's greatly appreciated. It shows in the product. It's much, 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 much better. I do believe it's really time that we road test these standards. I mean, you could review them forever and ever and ever, and you just don't know until you put them out there. We have literally folks waiting in the wings to hopefully redevelop their properties, and we will learn more about these standards when we're able to apply them to particular projects. And I want to remind everyone again that these standards, as it's already been mentioned, they're only one of many pieces of the implementation of the Central Issaquah Plan. They will be revised over the years, and they may even be revised within the next year or sooner if we discover some needed changes. But it's time, I believe it's time that we move forward, and it's not for this particular code to gather dust. It's specifically so that we can begin working on this implementation piece and some other important pieces that we need to get to as we continue to try to implement the Central Issaquah Plan. I do want to say that I think that one of the keys that we added to the standards and to the plan itself is the monitoring key, the monitoring piece. I think that's really, really important, and I'm glad we added that, and we will be keeping close tabs on how this comes out. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? Councilmember Butler.
The nice thing about being last, probably everything has been said, and I agree with most of what I heard. Is this perfect? Probably not. Is it better because we slowed things down and took a little bit more time? Yes, it is. Is it better because we had probably one of the most extensive planning processes in putting this together than anything that I've been involved in the 13 years that I've been on the council? Absolutely. The monitoring component and the mandatory reviews are the key to this, and we learned a lot through the process, and we will learn a lot as we implement it. But it's time to go forward. People expect us to make the tough decisions, and this is not, well, it is a tough decision, but it's a historic decision that provides the implementation for the vision for the next 30 years. And so will be very, very proud to support the adoption of the design guidelines and standards.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Councilmember Winterstein.
I'll start with my apologies to Councilmember Butler that I know you thought you were last, but I did have one more comment to make. I wanted to make sure, I just wanted to be on
This is the second round.
Okay. I just wanted to make, there is the change that I hadn't seen before, referenced tonight about changing the value to market value.
Fair market value.
Fair market value, so, that's easy to support in my mind. But I would like to get a little bit more information regarding the critical areas exemption from the calculation regarding the floor area ratio, or FAR. I do have that one email, and that's it. So could you, David, you look like you're poised to stand at the mic. Could you just give me, since this is new, and it would be in the document that's referenced in the agenda bill would be revised after tonight, with this information. So some more, I heard reference that other municipalities have similar code, but I've also don't really know its impact on the land that we're looking at as well.
Okay. So first of all, I'm referring to a memo, and if it's a secret, I don't want it to be a secret. Can we share it? We'd be happy to share with everyone, so. You have copies? Kristen will hand them out while we're talking here. And I think Kristen did a lot of this research. We were asked at Land and Shore last Tuesday to look at other cities. How do they handle this? And the issue has to do with, when we look at floor area ratio, it's a ratio as shown on page 2 of your memo here. It's a ratio or a formula where you have a numerator and a denominator. On top is the gross floor area of the building, and on the denominator is what's the site area you're talking about. So the comment we received in our discussions, as well as from developers, was that critical areas and the parks that are required for public dedication in this plan are not buildable, and therefore it would be more appropriate to not count that area when calculating the buildable area of a project. Some would say it's not fair to count land that's not buildable, and so we then looked at other cities. Well, how do they do that? And you see on the table that is on page 1 a quick survey that Kristen, thank you very much, worked on quickly this week or last week, and looked at comparable cities throughout Puget Sound. We highlighted, I think, 2 of the most comparable cities being Bellevue and Redmond, as for the majority showing that no critical areas and public parks are not included in that calculation of the buildable area, the site area, in this FAR formula. So based on that additional information and our feeling, just internally discussing how development sites work out, as well as a public comment email that I think was received and sent to the full council of one developer in town who had this comment. Based on all that information, we are recommending, the administration is recommending to modify the proposed text as shown on page 2 that recognizes that critical areas and the public parks that would be dedicated on certain areas in the plan area would not be counted in the calculation of FAR. So I'm just talking, I feel like, am I addressing your question or giving you the information that you need?
Well, this is very helpful to see.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So I did, what is the sense of its, what percentage of the land that's developable are we looking at? Have we looked at this in the entire area, or just a couple parcels?
And at the Land and Shore Committee meeting, we did pull out the existing conditions report that was prepared in like 2007 or so that identified the major critical areas throughout the valley. So it's the Tibbetts Creek, Issaquah Creek, the North Fork of the creek, a couple of key wetlands, and that's about the main critical areas that exist in the valley. So when you start looking at the properties, there's a key property at the west end of town that has a high amount of critical areas. There's a couple more in the valley, but there aren't that many. So when we started looking at how does this affect it, it's probably just a couple key properties throughout the valley, not affecting a large amount of Central Issaquah Plan area properties.
And a couple means?
I'd say 2 or 3, a couple. I mean, really out of, hundreds? We have 800 parcels, something like that? Yeah. So.
Other questions
Yeah.
or discussion? Is the council ready to act on the adoption of ordinance 2676, adding a new chapter 18.19A to the Issaquah Municipal Code to be entitled Central Issaquah Area Development and Design Standards, adopting development and design standards by reference to attached exhibits, and rezoning designated properties in accordance with the comprehensive plan, with the understanding that there were some changes that will be incorporated into this document. All those in favor of that action, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that was 6 in favor and 1 in opposition. Councilmember Scheer in opposition to that. That is all the action to come before the council this evening, and so the council meeting is adjourned at 8:47 p.m.